let's get going with our webinar for today. So thank you everyone for joining our 5th episode of Women Leaders in Customer Success on behalf of myself and Practical CSM. I am very excited to bring you this series of great CS leaders overall. As you know, for those of you who have taken this before, every month I host a new guest speaker, and together we look at various hot topics that are relevant today in CS world. So today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Sarah Patel as my guest, and we'll be talking about building thriving customer success teams. Funnily enough, we are both of us in new roles right now, my week 4, and Sarah's due to start her new one. So this is a very topical conversation about building customer success teams that are successful. So let's get started. So before we dive further into the topic, Sarah, would you just mind introducing yourself a bit more to the audience?
Certainly. I've been in the fintech world for over 20 years now, and I started as a developer.
Wow.
I moved into consultancy, but like last century, when it was a green screen. And did some consultancy, a bit of product management, project management, and then into customer success. So it's been a really interesting time, and the world of technology has changed substantially within that time. It always moves so rapidly. So there's lots more complexity, offshores and onshore and partners, and move from on-premise to SaaS, all of this stuff happening. And I think the longer I've been in tech, the more that for me, it's really all about the people, because it comes down to the customer, the user, your colleagues, your partners. It's all about talking to people and using the technology. And that's really leads me more towards the topic, and I think really what I would like to be known for in that kind of sense is to being people-centric, human-centric, and getting results, that you can do both.
Amazing. No, I definitely agree that we are in the people business, right? And that's how we do customer success most successfully, right? So you mentioned this is a topic that is close to your heart. So could you tell us a little bit more why you're passionate about it?
Yeah, I think partly because I've looked after a team, worked with a team, and then heading into more teams, looking at just how teams work and how you work together has always been really interesting to me. And I don't think we necessarily do very well, or that our organizations, we know we're in the people business, but many of our organizations are set up for product, or set up to sell, or set up for a thing, or set up for a service. And I was looking at the Gallup report, or the state of work for 2023, and they defined thriving at work. I'm just going to read it now. Thriving at work. Employees find their work meaningful, feel connected to the team and their organization. They feel proud of the work they do, they take ownership of their performance, going the extra mile for teammates and customers. And to me, that sums up a lot more than, are you happy at work? Or we look after wellness because you get free fruit. I mean, there's a big sense of purpose and accountability that's with that. And why would it matter? Well, there's a real strong connection between teams or engagement and thriving with business results. And Gallup have gone on to look at that as well. So it's not just something to do to be human, it's something to do to be successful in business. Fundamentally, we don't seem to be doing very well at this.
What do you think that is, right? How do we...
Yeah, well, it's crazy, isn't it? Because the Gallup survey was looking at like a record high engagement level or thriving level of 23%. That's very, very low. And that's across all industries. I think for customer success, there's a combination of, we tend to be quite service-led individuals and people that work to help and to make things better. And we're often in the middle of 101 different stakeholders and departments and people, and there's a lot of ask and there's a lot of give, and very high expectations, and we can't always achieve to those. We might be under-resourced in comparison to sales, for example. But on the other hand, I think we're in a good place to help ourselves out of that, because we're used to in customer successing our customers, right? We sit with them. What are the desired outcomes? What do you want to achieve? How are we going to do that? What's blocking us? I think we as a team and as a profession have a lot of the ways of thinking and the tools in place to look at where we are and think, how do we make things better?
Yeah. And why do you think that's the right time right now for you to be also thinking about this?
Well, for me personally, because I'm about to join a new team.
Fair enough.
And I don't know what I'm going into. So, you know, I know the organization a bit because I've interviewed and it all looks really great, but I don't know what they're dealing with. I don't know what the opportunities are and the challenges. And I want to be able to go in and make things better working with them. So that's a big thing for me. And I've had some time between one role and the next. So I've also enjoyed knowing this was something I was very interested in, going in and finding out other people who have been interested in this and looking at things like the Gallup and looking at research. So it's not just something I've been thinking about, but looking at what evidence there is and what other people have tried.
Yeah.
So for me, that's been a big part of it. And then it's a tough environment now, I think, as well, isn't it? You know, everyone wants to do more with less.
Right.
So we're all trying to how can we make the best out of our teams?
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think a couple of the other sessions that we've talked about customer success has been about the whole change in the landscape recently and why it's tough times. Do you think our teams get more resilient, or do they feel more disengaged potentially? What's your view on it, or how can we make sure that they keep more engaged with this kind of tough time?
I think for me, a lot of that is whether people feel empowered through the change and through what's happening. If you feel that stuff is being done to you, and no matter how much more you do and how much harder you work and what you take on, it's not making a difference, or it's not appreciated, or you have no say, then I think it can easily lead to overwhelm. But where we can use some of those tools and we can work with our people and empower change with our teams, then that's exciting. And that can feel so much more positive because we are forging a path ahead rather than being dragged.
Yeah, great. So how would you, for the benefit of our audience, how would you define what like a thriving team looks like, or what's a great team culture? Give us some pointers on that.
So I think of thriving is different to just say happy. Just the success is different to a happy customer. There's a different tone to the word when someone's thriving. It means they're really being successful and strong within what they're doing. So for a team to do that, I think they need to have a lot of it is clarity. Mm-hmm. That they really understand the company North Star and the organizational mission, and what the priorities are right now. What are our top goals? How that translate and links to the team. What are our metrics? What are our goals? What are we really striving to do this year or this quarter? And then back to, as an individual, what role do I play? So that real clarity of objectives. And that as an individual, you can tie your own drives and passions to what you're doing in your team. It might not be absolutely directly linked, but you know, if you've got a great desire to learn, how can you play that? How can you do that within your team? How can you help others learn? How can you start to do things? So if you're aligning your own passions and experience to what you're doing as your team, it's much more satisfying. And while everything is always changing, because we always have to evolve, mm-hmm. If you have a core sense of mission and purpose, the change feels like it's part of the journey rather than the rug's being pulled from under you again and again, and you have to keep pivoting. So you feel grounded because you know where you are and you know where you're going. You know what's expected of you. and that you're working as a team.
Yep.
So you can be confident in the support of your colleagues, your teammates, and they can be confident in you, and you've got that support peer to peer. And some robustness built in. You can go on holiday and the world doesn't fall apart.
Like that.
You need to be able to do that. Someone can win the lottery and your team carries on. You can't always have that single point of failure where you feel like you've got to be on all the time. So that sort of principle, really, I think.
Nice. What I heard a lot about there is that overall team culture piece, in terms of, right, it's not about you, it's about the team that supports you around there, and that, you know, as an individual, how you can get support from your bigger audience, but you're also personally aligned with that mission, and that has some focus in there. And I'm going to have to point out, because this is kind of a really bizarrely linked topic, is that I work for Thrive Partners, and a lot of our language is about thriving and being thrivers. So I've heard a lot about this culture piece recently, in terms of, you know, making our teams thriving. So now that you are thinking about this personally going into your next role, what kind of steps would you take personally to start building a culture that you've just described?
Firstly, I would hate to come in and just walk all over what's there.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm joining a new team and I'm joining a new organization to me, but they're very established. So as always, I think for any new leader going in, you're watching and listening and asking all the questions, aren't you? And you both, as you're learning more, you also benefit from being that slight outsider, because you're like, so why do you do it like that? Or is it really necessary that you do it like? And you begin to have questions, and then people come back and say, no, we know we've dealt with this before, it has to be in this way, and it's okay. So what I would be looking for is, how are people talking and feeling about being in work? How are they engaging with their customers? And watching for signs of too much happening, or things where's the pain. And again, we do that with our customers as well, don't we? Where's the pain? Let's try and give some breathing space. Let's understand, and then where can we make most of the opportunities as well. Now, I often want to look at what people are doing during the day. So sitting with people and seeing how the day unfolds, I think, can be really helpful. Because you see a lot kind of under the cover, slightly different from maybe what people are expecting to be done. There can be an idea of a little bit of magic that happens. And when you get under the covers, you start to see what actually happens and why certain things are important, or what gaps are being filled. So I want to understand that. And then where the CSMs are always very focused on their customers, rightly, it's great as a leader to be able to step back and look at, how is it working overall? Where is it working better? Where is it not? How can we adjust? How can we shift? Yeah.
And once you've done your discovery phase, which we'd normally like to get our feet under the table, do you have recommendations on like what steps you're gonna take to engineer culture change, if there is one needed?
Personally, I don't think you do anything alone. And so I really want to understand how the organizational culture is in there as well, and speak with their people, their talent, their HR people, and get that support too. But to really come together as a team, so that the team know that I'm there for them and that they're there for us all together. I want to be able to look at things. I think I like to look at some things around productivity. So not how do I make people work harder and faster and produce more widgets, but how are we working together? More about enablement. Is there something that we can do to put in so that we're better able to look after our customers? Are there things that we all hate doing because they're painstaking and we have to do them again and again and again? Can we change that? Are there misalignment of expectations? Do we need to sit down with some of the other teams just to say, we all want to work together, but how can we do this in a better way? So just start to be able to question those and to work through some, hopefully, some shifts or some changes that opens up some breathing space for people and takes some of the mundanity away where there's always mundanity, to allow people to be more of themselves and bring more of that high value human work with their customers.
Great, I like it. You mentioned productivity, and I guess that is a very topical topic. I hate the pun in there. We, like you said, we all are expected to do more with less. So any top tips on how you look at productivity, or people could look at productivity, but in the lens of not pushing people to capacity, but really from a kind of a human side of things, and making them feel as part of the solutions on that side of things?
Yes, and I think it's very interesting because it's tricky to measure productivity. And so we look for customer success by, are we hitting our metrics? Are we helping our customers renew, and NRR and so on? So we want to do more of that, is the basic underlying sort of concept around productivity for customer success. But we want to be able to do it efficiently, effectively, and with our team as people. So you can't just give someone twice the workload of customers and expect the same level of customer intimacy. We can't just push everyone to do a certain thing. And it has to be a way of, we look at how people are doing certain things within their day, and how can we make that better or easier. And where are the real moments that matter? Where are the points where we can nudge, we can tweak, and we can make a difference? And I think a lot will always come down to prioritizing for customer success, because we can't do everything, and the inbox will never empty. We usually look after a subset of customers, so there's always more. There's always new customers, and there's always more, and there's always more challenges. So there's never an end. It's really important to be able to say, for this quarter, or for this customer, or for this aspect, these are our priorities, and this is how we're going to fit it in, so that we're not spreading people too thin. And where possible, I think it's great to go back and look at that personal drives again, where someone's got a real interest or expertise or skill in something. Can we use that? Can we use our people so that they can do something where they can really shine, and we get all the benefit of that experience and passion as well?
Nice. I heard from your saying kind of prioritize is also a scope, in terms of like, hey, not like everything is urgent and important at once, but yeah, some remit in there, and I guess that comes back to your capacity planning as well in a way, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think we can all, when we're customer facing, we can all deal with something always being urgent all the time, and it can't be. And that doesn't mean we don't take things importantly, and we don't deal with them seriously, and we don't give them all our attention. But we can't deal with everything as a crisis all at once and run after things like headless chickens. Sometimes we need to just be able to pause and to tackle things in turn and the right way to get a better result. Yeah. And to learn from them as well, right? So that we're not running around again. What can we do better next time?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the word clarity earlier, and that sounds very much linked to that in terms of how do we clarify situations.
Yes.
Perfect. So what kind of challenges have you been faced with in the past? Because obviously you said you worked in different kind of areas and different teams and so forth. So what kind of lessons learned could you share with us?
I think part of my lessons learned have led to that drive, especially for clarity, because we tend to assume people know what we're there for and why and what we do. But it's only on really working with maybe our other stakeholders or people that we understand that the expectations can be different. So certainly some of the challenges have been multiple conflicting expectations within the same organization. I just want the team to deal with all my problems and make things go away. I really need the team to have strategic conversations at a high level. I really need the team to do this. So there's just a lot of ask, but they can be very different. And so having a real clarity again on how in this organization, where customer success stands, what's the scope, what's the mission, what are the objectives, so that we're not leaning back and saying, it's not mine and letting it drop. We're leaning in, we're helping, but we know where we fit. And I think that has taken a lot of discussion before to try and work through so that everybody felt that they understood where we were and what we were doing. And the other big challenge or conflict for me has always been the firefighting aspect, the urgent always taking precedence, and that can fill all your time. So you've got no breathing space to work on improvements or development or making the changes that you need for the future if you're always dealing with the short term. Yeah. It's quite difficult to get that space.
For sure, right? If you're not sure what you're doing, but at the same time, everything's thrown at you. So that sounds like quite a challenging thing. Do you think what happens now when you go into a new role? Do you think you'll have similar challenges, and what have you learned how to tackle those?
I'm sure I will have many of the same challenges, just because I think they're quite common when I've spoken to other customer success people. That sense of lots of different expectations and tackling the sense of urgency all the time, it seems to be very common. And that's fine, right? We go into things knowing there are problems to be solved, and that part of the problems are just part of the fabric of life. It's part of the air we breathe, but it's good to watch out for it, not because it's a setback, but because we're always aware that we're working in quite a complex area with lots of people and desires and expectations coming together. And none of this is easy. And if you push too much in one area, something else will give. So I completely expect to have many similar challenges and new ones that I won't have come across before, I'm sure. And that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
You know, how do we pull apart a little bit at some of these things, and how do we find a better way forward? How do we find a next step?
Yeah, fair enough. Good. I think we have a time for some questions if people want to post them in the chat. See if there's anything beforehand, but yes, we will get your resource guide. Do you want to just give us a quick highlight what you've included in there if people haven't been able to open it just yet?
A lot of links to some of either the organizations that I looked into or found very useful, or resources. So things like the Gallup 2023 report on work's very interesting. I put a link into the Brené Brown about being clear is kind and where that comes from her book on leadership. For purpose and engagement, I did a course with Sapien X, which was excellent, really on helping to align individuals to teams, to organizations, and helping people thrive. A few articles on transformations. So there can be a real gap between the strategy of transforming or making a change or project management and then actually getting it done. And the actually getting it done often comes down to knowing and working with your people. So a bunch of different links and resources, partly because I feel that sometimes when you talk about this, people think you're just being a little bit soft, a bit kind, isn't that lovely? But it's not real and hard and meaty, but it is. It really does make a difference, and there are organizations out there in research talking about different ways of working with people and helping teams thrive, which leads to better business results.
Nice, I like that link. Right, let me read out a couple of questions here. Let's start with Kelly. How do you support other teams to understand the value of customer success without them feeling that we're critical of their existing processes?
That's a great question. It can feel quite vulnerable, can't it? So especially if you're bringing in customer success new into an organization, you're making a space for yourself and people can feel pushed out of the way. So I think always, and you're often questioning the way people are doing things. We can be very customer centric first, and other teams might have a different set of metrics that they're aiming for. So always I use language in a very positive way to really look and understand the people we're talking to, the stakeholders. What are they trying to achieve? So we're back to customer successing our way out of every problem, right? Understanding what are people trying to achieve. They're not usually trying to trip us up. They've got business objectives they're trying to manage, and they will be as under-resourced and overwhelmed and dealing with all the crisis and urgent things, just as we are. So let's talk to our other stakeholders, understand, and then help. And that doesn't mean being a pushover and doing everything for them, but it means how do we work well together? And I think once people realize that you are on their side and you're keen to understand and keen to support, that can really open up and make people feel much more able to discuss and help. And it works both ways.
I think you shared a couple pointers there for the next question as well, but let's take Tammy's question. Do you have any specific pointers to starting a brand new customer success team?
I don't think I'm the expert in this. I don't know, Minna, if you started a brand new team, the team I had before had come from being customer experience and we became customer success. So there was a sort of shape within the organization and we had to change the way it was thought of. I think for starting a brand new team, we're back to saying, what do you want from this team to the organization? Yeah. It can't be a wish list of, please just solve all our attention, please make everyone renew. How many people, what are we going to do, what are we being asked for? Get that really clear, and then you can have a look at some of the practicalities of what can be achieved and just have that dialogue. If it's new, people are going to be tentatively feeling their way into what's possible and what's needed for the organisation. And what's needed right now might be very different from what's needed in 2 years' time.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right on that. It can evolve. What I've found helpful when I've done this in different organizations or gone into different organizations to transform it is have a 4P plan. And that to me is purpose, process, platforms, and I'm missing one because I can't think of on my feet, but like putting a framework on that, and therefore you can kind of bucket things on what you need to do. And then one big thing is, because if you're starting a new team, you're obviously people as fourth, probably. Yeah, I thought I said people, but people is the most important thing in terms of looking at how you onboard them, right? So how you're hiring, how you're onboarding them, what resources are they getting, and how their performance, like how do they know the clarity of what their expectations is from them as well, coming back to your clarity point. Great, thanks everyone for the questions. I have one more for Sarah from my side. Yes, we will try to repost the resources in the chat once we stop the recording, but we will also do a joint LinkedIn post for me and Sarah so that you guys can get that great resource guide. So Sarah, what would you like the audience to remember from our conversation today?
For me, the big takeaway is look after your people, and then they will look after your customer. And secondly, that change is not only inevitable, but it's desirable. Every organization we're in is going to constantly change. And our teams and our people are what make up the organization. It's a community, not a machine. So with both of those, our people and constant change, I think you do it with people. Don't do things to them. Help your people to be part of their future, forging their path forwards. We hire brilliant people, let them shine. So that's it, look after your people.
And they will look after your customers.
They will look after your customers. I think Richard Branson said that in like a small pithy phrase, 10 years ago, and it's just so true.
It is, and it's a lot of hospitality motto as well. Look after your customers, and they'll come back, right? Yes. And that's what we hope for. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We will be back next month again on our usual Wednesday slot. And we will be posting obviously the sign up links. Go into Practical CSM, you'll see all our previous recordings and keep those great questions coming up. I am going to post the recording now, and we will try to repost the link for the resources. But if you need to go, feel free to head off, and thank you again for joining.